and all your favorite shows are available with Passport. Support your PBS station and stream more with Passport.
On the grassy plains of Hungary called the Puszta, roams the only truly wild horse species in the world. Follow the life of a young foal named Dot as she navigates life, along with a diversity of creatures that inhabit her world. The epic story of survival on Wild Horses, a tale from the Puszta.
Watch live or stream tonight at 8 on KPBS. You're watching KPBS. Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. By viewers like you. Thank you.
Strict asylum rules were supposed to ease up last week. Now they're extending into next year. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Attorneys general from a group of conservative states persuaded the Supreme Court to keep the policy known as Title 42 alive, at least for now. KPBS border reporter Gustavo Solis explains the ruling.
Title 42 started out as a pandemic-era travel restriction. It allows border officials to turn away asylum seekers and other migrants, all in the name of stopping the spread of COVID-19. Even though almost all other pandemic-era restrictions have been lifted, Title 42 remains. Lawyers and advocates for migrants are quick to point out the irony. The same conservative states that spent the pandemic pushing back against quarantines, mask requirements, and vaccine mandates are now asking the Supreme Court to keep Title 42 in place. Lee Gallerant is the ACLU's lead attorney in the lawsuit trying to end Title 42.
These 19 states have almost uniformly opposed every type of COVID restriction. The one type of COVID restriction they claim to support is the one that targets vulnerable asylum seekers. So I think it's hypocritical of these states to claim that they want to keep a COVID restriction in place because of any risk of COVID.
Alex Mensing is the communications manager for Innovation Law Lab. He also remarked on what he views as the height of cynicism by these Republican officials.
When public health measures are being used to save people, some of these politicians are opposed to them. But when they're being used to put people's lives at risk, all of a sudden they're in favor.
Title 42 has been used more than 2 million times to turn vulnerable migrants away from the U.S. border. And thousands of those migrants have been brutalized by kidnappers and other criminals in Mexico.
This has caused horrendous harm. Our partners have documented thousands of cases of rape, torture, persecution, even death.
The ACLU and other organizations originally sued the Trump administration after Title 42 was first implemented in the spring of 2020. In November, a federal judge in Washington, D.C. ordered the Biden administration to finally end the policy on December 21st. 19 conservative states asked a federal court of appeals to block that ruling. They claimed that lifting Title 42 would result in a surge in legal and illegal migration at the southern border. When a federal appeals court rejected their argument, they took the case to the Supreme Court. The court agreed to decide whether these states have the legal right to intervene. Justices are scheduled to hear oral arguments in the case in February. Until they make a final ruling, the order to terminate Title 42 is on pause. This means that asylum seekers will stay in the same dangerous limbo that they've already been in for the last 3 years.
The door's just been slammed shut in their face.
Mensing says that this decision strikes at the heart of the American asylum system, which goes back to the Second World War.
After World War II, when the world looked at what had happened and decided there needed to be a way to provide protection for people who were being persecuted in their home countries, that's when the asylum system was created. It's really troubling to see the U.S. turning its back on people who are fleeing violence.
Gustavo Solis, KPBS News.
And we have a broader look at some of these migrant stories. Rosa Flores is in El Paso with a personal look at what some of those families are going through.
4-year-old Ajayder and his dad, Angelo Sanchez, are in line at this El Paso Catholic church that turns into a migrant shelter, hoping for a warm place for the night. Sanchez says he left his native Colombia because his son was hungry.
He says that his soul breaks when his son asks him for food and he can't give him any food.
The windburn on Ajayder's face, a sign he endured the recent frigid conditions out in the elements without a jacket.
So he describes that this is what his son was wearing throughout the journey.
Sanchez and his son are part of the growing number of migrants who, despite the threat of Title 42, which allows border agents to swiftly expel some migrants to Mexico, are flocking to the southern border, turning themselves into authorities, and some are allowed to stay in the United States pending their immigration cases. Tuesday's Supreme Court order keeps Title 42 in place while the legal challenges play out in court. It's deemed a win for the Republican-led states who want to keep the Trump-era pandemic public health rule. But even President Joe Biden says its end is overdue.
The court is not going to decide until June, apparently, and in the meantime we have to enforce it. But I think it's overdue.
While Sanchez waits, one of the church volunteers allows women with children to enter.
Why did you decide to come to the United States now?
Like many migrants we've talked to, he says he thought the border was open.
He says that he learned about it on Facebook.
You'll see triple strand concertina wire.
The Texas National Guard has erected miles of fencing in the El Paso area to change that perspective.
This sends a clear message. Do it the right way or don't come in.
The long lines of migrants that were here 2 weeks ago, all gone.
Te duele.
As the temperature dips nearly 10 degrees and no word yet if dad and son will gain entry into the shelter, Ajayder points to the windburn on his face and says it hurts. Inside the shelter, the priest that runs it says 2 weeks ago 50 migrants needed shelter. Now he has to turn people away. Many of them sleep on the street.
We try to do what we can. We're a church. We've got limited resources.
Then a sign of hope. There's room for men with children, and Sanchez is next. A prayer answered.
He says that faith moves mountains.
For a father who says he just wants to work to provide for his son.
And that was Rosa Flores reporting. Our coverage continues on KPBS Radio and online. Today's KPBS Midday Edition features discussion on the latest Title 42 ruling, and you can listen to it anytime at kpbs.org or wherever you get your podcasts. It did rain, but not on the Holiday Bowl parade. KPBS reporter Kitty Alvarado shows us how the parade really pumped up fans for tonight's big Holiday Bowl game in the Gaslamp.
It was a little overcast, but that didn't matter to the tens of thousands that lined the streets of downtown San Diego. They were ready for the Port of San Diego Holiday Bowl parade. But first, runners hit the parade route for the Holiday Bowl 5K. Parade organizers say this is America's largest balloon parade, and their 24 giant balloons didn't disappoint. And the cheers for the Elmo balloon seem to be the loudest. Maybe it's because he brought some friends. But there were also other performers, like lowriders and ballet folklorico. But the marching bands, oh, those marching bands. They came in every sound and every stripe. And of course, it's all about football on this day. And people came from far and wide to cheer for their own. And when we say their own, we mean Oregon and North Carolina, of course. And we got a little bit of a competition going.
We're from Raleigh, North Carolina. All of our daughters are dancing in the parade, and UNC made it to this bowl, so it's a twofer.
And they're in the halftime show. We've got a duck in the marching band. So excited, and I think the Ducks are going to pull it off today. What do you guys think?
Yes. Do you guys have a cheer? I mean, you heard their cheer. Are you guys going to bring it?
Well, we bring it with a fight song, so if you've got the fight song.
Okay, let's see. Let's hear it.
Fight, fight.
But some of the proudest folks we met on the parade route were wearing number 25, but they were from Georgia.
Well, we're here to see our son and the Tar Heels play and defeat Oregon. today. Our son is number 25, Cayman Rucker, a.k.a. Ruck the Butcher. So we're looking for big things today. Yeah, they're loud.
How excited are you? You're hearing the band. How excited are you? And just like that, an overcast day turned into a sunny day. Kitty Alvarado, KPBS News.
It's not that much better tonight for customers of Southwest Airlines. The company says a meltdown involving a scheduling system still needs to be resolved. We went back to San Diego International Airport today to see how travelers are holding up. Many have been stuck for days, and in many cases, their luggage is lost too. Alternatives like rental cars are also hard to come by. Here's what some of those trying to travel today are saying.
Right now our flight is supposed to go, but they really won't even check our bags because until they know for sure it's going to go, they won't take our bags. And so we just got to wait and see.
A chair would be nice instead of having to stand the whole time, but and a few more smiles from the staff would be nice. I know they're trying, but you know, just a few smiles would be nice.
It's tough. I mean, I've been in missed flights before. I've been in the same situation where you had to sit and wait at the airport for hours upon hours and find out your flight was canceled, then stay in a hotel and all that business. Just tough on the holidays for everybody.
And many other airlines are back up to speed following travel problems related to the storm that affected much of the country over the Christmas holiday. Southwest, however, expects more cancellations and delays, possibly even into next week. You can take the scene at San Diego International and multiply it by dozens. That is how widespread this problem is for Southwest. Gloria Pazmino updates the national situation and what travel experts are suggesting for those who are trying to get home.
Southwest Airlines under intense scrutiny from stranded customers.
This year has been a bad one. They have really disappointed me.
And the federal government.
Meltdown is the right word. This is an unacceptable situation, and I've made clear that our department will be holding them accountable for their responsibilities to customers.
The airline blaming the travel disaster on winter storm delays, aggressive flight scheduling, and its own outdated infrastructure.
We're doing everything we can to return to a normal operation. And please also hear that I'm truly sorry.
As other airlines seem completely recovered from the recent winter storm, Southwest already cutting over 2,300 Thursday flights, admitting this could go on for days.
Fix it.
For those struggling to get home, experts say book as soon as possible with another airline. Southwest policy is they will not do it for you. And note, American and United Airlines are capping fares on some Southwest routes.
Don't put it off. The longer you wait, the fewer options you'll have.
Booked on your credit card, check to see if you have travel protection. It could mean hundreds of dollars back in your pocket. And finally,
keep those receipts. Southwest says they'll honor reasonable requests for reimbursement.
In Baltimore, Gloria Pazmino, KPBS News.
San Diego is preparing to add bike lanes to Convoy Street, the heart of Kearny Mesa's Asian Cultural District. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen has more on how businesses and residents are taking the news.
When you're talking about the bike lanes,
Tom Nickel has owned O'Brien's Pub on Convoy Street since 2003. He gets a lot of business around midday when folks who work in Kearny Mesa are on their lunch breaks.
You know, not a lot of residents right nearby. The previous owner always joked we were the neighborhood pub without a neighborhood.
O'Brien's sits in a strip mall on Convoy Street, alongside a number of Asian restaurants. The lack of housing within walking distance of the Convoy Asian Cultural District means most people get here by car. The city's plans for bike lanes on Convoy Street will mean the removal of 288 parking spaces, a price that Nickel says isn't worth it.
Convoy, I think, presents a real dangerous area to be on a bike, even in a bike lane, given the number of cars and the number of places those cars are going to be turning. So, no, I will not be encouraging people to use the bike lanes in any way, shape, or form.
I think these bike lanes are a great step towards making it safer
for other forms of transportation.
Stephen Palmer lives less than 2 miles to the east of Convoy Street. He bikes around his neighborhood several times a week and hopes businesses will add more safe and secure bike parking. When he goes to the Convoy district, he usually gets takeout.
But if there was bike infrastructure where I could lock my bike up in a public place, then I would be more likely to stay around, maybe go sit down at dinner, grab dessert after, things like that.
The city did a parking study of the Convoy district and found the vast majority of people don't park on Convoy itself, but on side streets and in private and public parking lots. Kent Lee, the newly elected city council member for the area, says Kearny Mesa has to become more walkable and bike-friendly, but the transition away from car dependence won't be easy.
And when people have said, how do we have infrastructure without housing? Or the flip side is, how do we have more housing without the infrastructure? My answer typically has been that, well, the reality is we need both, right? And they're not always going to happen at the same time.
Convoy Street is due to be repaved and restriped with the new bike lanes sometime in the next 6 months. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Pandemic travel restrictions in and out of China will soon be relaxed, but not totally for those planning a trip to the U.S. Today, the Centers for Disease Control announced travelers will be required to pass a COVID-19 test before boarding. The CDC says the tests are needed due to what it says is minimal sharing of important virus data by the Chinese government. The new rule takes effect on January 5th.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, even as the weather warms, the aftermath of the country's massive winter storm still plagues cities and travelers. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
SDG&E has taken on a new look by way of its logo. According to the energy company, the letters stay the same, but the new energy globe and colors on the logo represent movement forward. This is the first time the company has changed its logo in 3 decades. The transition will take some time to change all logos from its fleet and signage and uniforms. SDG&E says it used shareholder funds to update some of the logos. The evolution of how and where we work was a big story in 2022. Earlier this year, I talked with people at a local staffing agency to see how lessons learned from the pandemic are being applied at their office and in the workforce at large.
It's all in the name, manpower. And their administrative office in Bankers Hill is seeing more people power than it has in the last 2 pandemic years. Until recently, a majority of the staff has worked on a hybrid or remote work model. Executive Officer Phil Blair says the company is starting to figure out how that can be applied post-pandemic.
The pandemic is a terrible thing to waste. There's some good things that have come out of it. That we can work remote 2 or 3 days a week, that we can have flexible schedules. It's not 8 to 5.
Author of Job 1 and a bi-weekly column for the San Diego Union Tribune, Blair writes about workforce trends and corporate culture. He says since we're in a candidate's market, it would behoove a company to strike a reasonable balance for its employees.
I think any company that says every employee has to be in here 8 to 5, Monday to Friday, is going to have a very difficult time keeping their employees and attracting new ones, because we've seen the other side of the fence.
For manpower staffing, Blair says he doesn't want to offer a cookie-cutter approach, instead choosing to be flexible to individual needs as well as the needs of the company. For their culture, that does include some face-to-face time.
Now, in our case, what we're thinking is Wednesdays. Then on Wednesdays, we ask everyone to be in the office. So accounting can talk to marketing, marketing can talk to payroll, and food is a great attraction.
Just past a set of swinging restaurant-style doors, the office kitchen is furnished with the comforts of home, like armchairs, free snacks, and a cozy fireplace.
Even though people work remote, Fridays, they come in for the food.
Office manager Colette Morell chose colorful details to make it feel homey for those who do come in.
We have desserts all the time. I love to make desserts.
Do you get to work from home too?
No, I don't.
Do you wish that you did?
Sometimes.
Morell also manages the building, which means her job requires her to be on site.
I was here every day during COVID. So I have never worked from home.
She says being one of the very few employees in the office meant fewer interruptions and more productivity. AR specialist Joanna Walls says fewer interruptions is why she prefers working away from the office.
If you have to choose between working at home or working in an office permanently, what would you choose?
This is her second day at Manpower. Her last job required her to work from home full-time. At Manpower, she'll be driving in from Oceanside 2 days per week, which she thinks strikes a good balance, especially considering drive time and the price of gas. She says preparing for work and commuting both ways can take 4 hours per day, on top of her regular 8 hours of work.
If the company is supporting that, and then it also saves cost as well for them and for you, I think it's a win-win.
I want you in every day. Well, boss, why? Well, that's how I've done it for 20 or 30 years.
When employees are asked to come in, Phil Blair says there needs to be a reason for it, and not just because that's the way things were done pre-pandemic.
And then use that time together productively. Everybody goes into their cubicle, closes the door, comes out at 5 or 5:30. That's not a reason.
And finding a balance between nurturing the corporate culture and maintaining work-life balance could be delicate, but something Blair says is worth exploring.
Are they doing a good job? Are they doing the work? Is there good communications? Okay, take a breath and try it. Or you're going to lose that employee, because they will find an opportunity of a company that will do it.
In a job market that boasts more jobs than workers, the choice between prioritizing career over family has become a less necessary one.
And in this market, eyes wide open, there is lots of opportunities for good people to go somewhere else.
Global Workplace Analytics has estimated that companies can save about $11,000 per year per half-time remote employee, and the savings comes from less office space, more productivity, as well as reduced sick days and less turnover. Well, this Friday on KPBS News This Week, we will look back on some of the biggest stories of 2022, and this airs Friday at 8:30 here on KPBS, with several replays you'll find over the weekend. And of course, you can find everything on the KPBS YouTube page. That is where we have last week's show, which features some of our best arts and entertainment stories from this past year.
Well, the storm that gave us some beneficial rainfall, anywhere from 1/4 of an inch to about an inch in our areas out of here, but the cool, moist flow will continue. Plenty of clouds around and cool temperatures into the weekend. And over the weekend, another storm arrives. This one will be more impactful. The rain a little heavier. There'll be some strong winds. Snow levels initially high will start to lower, so some mountain roads could be impacted. Tonight, just some clouds around. We'll cool it down to about 53. The surrounding areas, upper 40s. Oceanside to El Cajon. Ramona's at 42. And Borrego Springs at 46. Mount Laguna dips down to the mid-30s. Here's a look at the future satellite and radar. All the deep moisture from the atmospheric river is gone, and now we see plenty of clouds coming in with this cool, moist flow. The next round of rain headed towards central and northern California, so that will miss us here through the end of the week. So we'll say generally dry here. Taking a look at our weather, it's cool with the clouds, upper 50s in Ramona, San Diego's at 62. Could see the passing shower, especially later in the day into the evening hours for some, but most areas will just be cloudy. Then as we take you into Friday, no big changes, bulk of the moisture staying to our north. But over the weekend, we will see the stronger system arriving by Saturday afternoon into Saturday night. We'll see significant rain here. Could see some heavier amounts of rain, perhaps an inch or more right along the coast. And as we take you into the interior, the rain arrives Saturday into Saturday night. And we could have some heavier amounts here, perhaps 1 to 2.5 inches of rain. And then as we take you up in the mountains, snow levels initially high at 8,000 feet. They'll be lowering down to about 5,500 feet. As the snow winds down. Some mountain roads could be impacted, and even the desert, there'll be some wet weather coming through here on Saturday night. Otherwise, it's windy and cool. And for KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Mark Mancuso.
Earlier, we showed you some of the fun from this morning's Holiday Bowl Parade, and we still have the biggest parade of them all to look forward to. We're seeing more of the behind-the-scenes work happening for the 2023 Tournament of Roses Parade. The traditional New Year's event will happen on Monday, January 2nd, due to a long-standing rule of not holding it on a Sunday. The parade will feature several entries from San Diego. Another iconic New Year's event is the famous ball drop in New York City. If you look close enough during the countdown to midnight, you might spot something new. Zinnia Maldonado has the story from Times Square.
Whether in person,
the first goal is try to get as close as possible to the ball drop.
Or at home.
We're probably going to cast the ball drop on the TV.
Millions will be watching this massive 12,000-pound crystal ball dropping right here in Times Square come New Year's Eve.
She's going to get to see the ball drop. Only 10 years old, so that's kind of a win for her. A little bit of champagne, that's it.
Now, the crystal ball features 2,688 triangles to be exact, and this year they're replacing 192 of those with the new design, Gift of Love. A circle of overlapping hearts intertwined together. Crews working throughout the afternoon today to place the message of love on the iconic ball, which stands 12 feet tall.
Every year we bring a different message, gift of peace, gift of love, gift of friendship, but I think love is so important, not only for our, friends, family, our loved ones, but for the whole world.
Kickoff Saturday will be about 6 p.m. when the ball is raised to the top of its pole above Times Square. With no official COVID requirements announced, this year's celebration different from last year when only 15,000 people were allowed to attend. And a far cry from 2020 when the ball dropped for the first time ever in front of an empty Times Square. Organizers share they hope the message of this year's theme hits home not only for the thousands that will be celebrating in person, but also for those watching across the country.
With that act of love and that gift of love, I think we as people, we can be better. And what they say, put on your mask first before you take care of somebody else. So if you got that foundation, you become a better person to help everybody around you.
From Times Square, Zinnia Maldonado, CBS 2 News.
And here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. A slowdown in cannabis sales for one of the first states to legalize recreational use. NPR's Morning Edition has more on why COVID-19 had something to do with it. And KPBS Midday Edition will have an interview with the city of San Diego's very first chief geriatric officer on their work to serve our aging population. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Which is been used to monitor and track journalists, human rights activists.
This story would be huge.
NSO was established with the ambition to make the world a safer place.
It's a military weapon used against civilians.
There is no control over how countries use it.
Frontline, Tuesday at 10 on KPBS.
When we were thinking about the process of moving our